Artlist.io.
Hello everyone and welcome to the latest episode of You Deserve Fresh Lettuce. I am your co-host Rachel.
And I'm Delia.
And today we're going to be talking about mother-in-laws. Oh man.
You gotta love them.
You're going to grab your tequila, grab your Tabi tequila.
Cheers. Tabi tequila.
Cheers. Because we're getting
this
into it here.
This is Blanco, by the way.
Yes.
No, I understand we have a different tequila bottle there.
Beautiful bottles. Okay, let's get into it because we're going to be hearing a little bit of a contrast because Delia and I each have very different relationship styles with our mother-in-laws currently.
Yes.
And so you're going to get two really interesting perspectives, I think.
Yeah.
Yes. Do you want to start or you want me to start?
So for me it was a little different, and I usually don't like to lead with negativity, but honesty is always the most important thing. So I know that your experience is a little bit more positive. We can go very bright and dark. So you can start.
Okay. Tag, I'm in.
Okay, tag, you're in. Let's go.
She's wanting to prepare the energy in the room.
Just FYI,
Yeah.
like, oh my goodness, we're gonna have to do some sage cleaning after I'm done with my stories.
She's gonna be praying while I'm telling my story.
I'm like, please don't let me talk shit.
Oh my God. Okay, so to give you a little bit of backstory, with my mother-in-law, she and I just came from completely different worlds.
Okay.
Like absolutely, positively two different worlds. So I'm just setting the stage for you. She was from Mexico. She came from a ranch in Mexico. You're talking about like a very humble beginning, like no electricity, just very, very humble, like living off the land and all that. Her son found me at the mall.
He found you. He scouted you.
He found me at the mall. Yeah. Okay, looking good. I came from a world where I was the only child, and I got a lot of things that I wanted in life, and it was good. You know what I mean? As far as like material things and not having to worry about things like electricity or whatever. I was into fashion, all kind of stuff, right? So now married, and I get to meet my mother-in-law. I didn't meet her until I was married for 5 years.
Wow.
So she actually arrived from Mexico on a visit at the week my youngest son was born. So I was already married 5 years, and I got to meet her. Now, I had spoken to them on the phone, her and my father-in-law.
Yeah, so you knew them through the phone, but never actually physically met
never met them and saw photos, whatever. So when I got to meet her, she just didn't know, we didn't know what to do with each other. She only knows Spanish, and I, as you may have heard in some of the Spanish episodes that we do, my Spanish is like very Los Angeles. It's way out. It's out of pocket. So anyways, we had a little bit of that going on, but also I was very modern. And so she grew up thinking that girls that looked like me, who were, let's just say, educated and wore the heels and the hair and the makeup and the perfume and all these things all the time, that didn't translate as wife material. Okay. That translated as some other kind of girl, like out on the streets or whatever.
So, can I ask you a question? And this is just because obviously I'm Latina also. Does she want you to be like, she wants you to be making like handmade tortillas,
you know what I mean?
Or what?
Like the apron with like the chanclas and like.
So the nails were, the masa was going to get in there. So she's like, you are not.
I was like flipping tortillas with like a spatula, you know what I mean? Like, it just is what it is. Like,
grab it with your hand,
Yeah, or she's like, on the comal or whatever.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, we didn't start off fantastic. And even though today we have a wonderful relationship, but we started off a little bit rough because I just didn't understand where she was coming from, and it felt very judgy. I felt judged, but I did know I can only be myself. I don't know how to be any different than myself.
Right.
So, I hung out with the guys if my brother-in-laws were over. If they wanted a drink, I had a drink, and she was like,
That's a big deal, right?
Yeah, like I didn't drink beer,
because they take it, if they're old school like that, and correct me if I'm wrong, in Mexico to say that, to say I went to a bar, that's one thing. But in Mexico is like you're a cantinera. And that is like you are like a whorebag.
But
that's what they consider a woman that drinks, because it's very not I mean, especially
it's not ladylike.
No, not very ladylike, especially where she was from. Is that correct? Or correct me if I'm wrong.
For sure. So if my husband or my brother-in-law, who was like a freak, I used to say he's like my second husband. He does the most. He's so wonderful.
Yeah.
I'm like super blessed. I mean, I can go on every episode and just brag about how amazing they are. But he would be like, Rachel, let's go. Drink tequila and drink. I'm gonna make you a drink, and I'd be like, yeah, because you know what? We're just hanging out at the house. Like, we all have freaking kids running around. Like, it's just what we did for entertainment. And she would just be like, you're going to drink, in Spanish. Like, you're going to drink. Like, oh, no. Like, this. And then I'm like, yeah.
You're like, taking it back. You're like, bring
and then I'm like, freaking the funnel,
very Tijuana, very Cabo San Lucas.
But, but I was more like, I just wanted her to see that it's okay. Like, I wanted her to see I am doing this with my husband, and my brother-in-law and my sister-in-law's there, and like, but we're in a safe place. The kids are right here. I'm not wasted drunk. I can walk. I can talk. Yeah. And I wanted her to see it's okay. So it took a long time, but I was telling Delia a story behind the scenes. And I said, I remember the day that I came home and I went to go open one of my drawers, and like all of my my thongs, my underwear were like folded super listen, perfect. My drawer is like, there's my underwear drawer, there's my bras, and she had it all super, and I was like, what the heck? And like my laundry was done, and I was like, what the heck? Awkward, yeah. And so I just didn't know what to do. And I remember telling my mom, like, she's also, how's it been? Like, getting to know your mother-in-law. And I was like, well, like, she seems quiet and she's clearly trying to figure me out. Right. But I came home and my drawers were all, so I'm telling my mom the story, and she's like, oh no, like, that's your privacy. That's going to be an issue, She shouldn't be in your master bedroom and all this kind of stuff. And so finally, it took me like a year of like her visiting, and then she would always come and then go through my drawers and like do this. And his too, but she would like do our laundry, and I'm super grateful, obviously. Right, of course. But it took me a long time when we finally started like breaking the ice and laughing together and stuff. And I saw again my drawers were done, and I went to her and I said, oiga, because in Spanish, and I said, what's the fascination with my underwear? Yeah. I'm like, I know they're cute, but like, what is it about them? Like, they're little. And so she's like, well, the truth is, like, I just wanted to help out, but I don't understand. Yeah. And so I was like, you don't understand what? She goes, I don't understand what it is. Like, I know they're underwear, but I don't understand. And you know what it was? Like, she was trying to be helpful, but she like literally didn't understand the whole string song thing. Like, she didn't get it.
Because she's old school.
She never even seen it. And so I said to her, and I think this was the moment that really broke the ice. I could have taken it as judgy, but instead I said, okay, wait, Rachel, she's coming from a whole other world. And so I looked at her and I said, I grabbed one and I went, this? And she's like, she was so embarrassed. And she goes, I don't know what goes where. And so like I put it over my pants, and I'm like, look, it goes. And she's like, oh my God. And we were all laughing. And then I said, if you want, I can take you to get some, because they're the best. Like, they don't have, And that was like the beginning of her starting to feel safe to then say, what about this? And then what's that? And we became friends as women, not as me married to her son and her being my mother-in-law. It was like we just became fascinated with each other.
And you guys became like
And now we're 20-something years deep. And she comes to my house still. I haven't been married for 10 years to her son. She still comes and stays at my house, and we still get along really great.
Like, I love stories like that. I hate the fact that mother-in-laws have like this negative stigma, because I think that, you know what, at the end of the day, you obviously have a mutual understanding. Like, you love their son and she loves her son, and as long as you're a good woman to their son, that should be sufficient. But some moms are so territorial that it's one of those things. Like, for me, in my experience, I remember like first being married, and like, I was sharing the story with Rachel, like, she had a key to the house, and she felt that if we didn't answer the door after the second knock, she would just walk in the door. And so for me, when it comes to family, I try not to, especially when I was married, I try not to fight with siblings, the mother-in-law, the father-in-law, and my father-in-law was an amazing man, only because I hate to hear the stories of families that are like, I don't talk to her, I hate his sister, I hate the brother, I hate the wife and the kids and this. I just feel like when you come together for the holidays, it's really beautiful to extend the table and literally just have that communion with family. So for me, if I have to shut my mouth and not say anything to avoid a fight or conflict, I will shut my mouth to avoid a conflict. And I'm like, don't take it personal. That's just how she's doing it. And I know that there are mother-in-laws that are just so difficult. And
Yes.
and most people that I talk to will say like, I can't stand my mother-in-law. I can't stand her. And for me, I was like, I'm going to be respectful of her because that is my husband's mother, and I have to be respectful because he's not going to get rid of her, nor would I ever ask that of anyone that I ever would be with, because their mother is really important. So I know that, if you can have a relationship like you, I mean, that's the idealistic thing. You could have gone the other way, which would have been like, this bitch is trying to like get in my business. Like, and how dare her? But you know what? You came from a place where you're like, you know what, let's literally break this down. She has no idea what a thong is because she's from another world. Like, that's very common for us to have like G-string and like no string. But for her, it's like the old school big underwear.
Yes.
And
I could have seen it as like a total invasion of privacy, which I get where my mom was coming. My mom's a very, very private person. But then and I would like to say that I am too, but then I was like, do I really want to fight about the fact that, about this until I understand her reason why? And it wasn't like, why are you doing it? No, it was like, so what is it that's, I appreciate what you're doing, but I want to understand like what's, and she says, I just want to help. I see that you're working and you have the baby and like all this kind of stuff. So for her, she sees a laundry basket with laundry in it, and she's like, I'm just here doing nothing, and I want to clean, I want to tidy it up. Yeah. So she was, and I grew over time to be so excited that she was coming over because I knew she was going to help me with so many things around the house. But let me tell you, at first I didn't understand, and sometimes when we don't understand one another, it's friction that because we tell these stories in our head, like how dare she go into my space. But where she's from, you don't just sit around all day. Like, you see that there's things to be done in the house, and you do them. No,
and I always say, like, for instance, like my grandmother, let her rest her soul, like that's one thing that I really admire about her. Like, till this day, I always say it to anyone that will listen to me, that woman had her whole entire front yard completely washed and ready. Inside's ready, breakfast is ready. I mean, she was just a hustler. She didn't stop. And I love like how active she was. And I'm like, that's awesome. So sometimes I think we think that we take things personally. Like, why is she coming at me this way? Why is she being this way? And I think if you sit there and you talk to someone, you're like, what is it about what I'm doing that you don't like? Like, what am I doing?
And genuinely be ready to just hear whatever
the person
whatever it is, because it's sometimes just a lack of understanding of one another, and that could lead to a lack of respect, actually.
I agree.
Over time. But I can say this, for as me being a woman who raised 2 boys into men, and I say this often, I have heard stories like on social media going, oh my gosh, my mother-in-law, or just from people saying, I told my husband, your mom can't see the baby until she starts to respect me. I mean, I've heard so many things where the wives are coming in between the husband and the mother because the mother's not treating their wife right. And so I sit there and I cringe at that as a mom, a boy mom, because let me tell you, my sons would bring girls, Mom, I love her. And it's like, at first I'm like, how cute. And then I'm like, you know what? Don't be bringing another one over until you're ready to marry freaking this girl, because it'd be like a revolving door every week. No, I promise it's this one. So finally, I was able to admit I'm being a little bit difficult because...
But do you think you're being a jealous mom?
So it wasn't jealous.
Okay.
So a lot of wives think, the mom's jealous. I'm going to tell you right now what it is. If you are a woman and your mother-in-law is just picking at you every freaking little thing, let me tell you where she's coming from. And I can't speak for every single one, but as a boy mom, there is something inherently like alive in us with our boys. It's not just protecting them or anything like that. It is that as a mother, at least in my case, and I know a lot of women agree with this, we go out of our ways to create the men, I think, that we would like to have had in our lives in some way, shape, or form. And that becomes, is he a gentleman?
Right.
Is he a hard worker?
Right.
Is he respectful? There's like all these things that we do our best, right? To create good humans and create good men. Okay, great. And we do that with the expectation that they're going to hopefully attract or choose a good woman.
Okay.
And what ends up happening is no matter what you tell us, to us, our sons are everything.
Okay.
The dynamic between a boy and his mom is like, it compares to no other relationship. It is the craziest dynamic.
Yeah.
I guess you could say daddy's girls and stuff like that. I didn't, I loved my father, but I didn't really have that thing. But
Okay.
I've seen people that are like, they're daddy's girls, like to the point where they will fight their moms if the moms are mean to the dads. Like,
Okay.
it is a thing. So with boy moms, like myself, I'm kind of that way. And so to me, I'm like, choose wisely. Stop freaking dicking around or whatever.
Yeah.
So when they pick a girl that, for example, my oldest one was just like, I say this, an equal opportunity, whatever.
Yeah,
you
equal
know?
opportunist.
And
Yeah.
he would bring these girls around, and I'm just like, oh my God. And I would ask questions. Now, I would say, I can't say, oh, does she cook? Does she clean? Because they're young, even I didn't really do that a lot growing up. But I don't see that they're coming from the same moral base. I don't see that they're coming from the same, like, view of what a household should be, what a wife should be.
But I do think the generation, and I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent, but I do believe that, in my opinion, the newer generation, we're not bringing up the women or the boys or the men to be conditioned like we used to be back in the day, where the woman kind of stayed home, because you have to remember, women nowadays want equality.
Yes.
And so that's the unfortunate part when you have someone that's a little bit more old school, let's say like your mother-in-law.
Yeah. Or like my younger son.
Or
He's
your younger,
very old-fashioned, yeah.
So you go from a generation of thinking that the man is a provider. Nowadays, that's not the case. The woman is just equally the provider. And so a lot of girls, and I say this because I've seen it, they are not being brought up to know how to cook, to know how to clean, to do anything. And and I have 2 daughters, so I don't know what it's like to have a son, but I always do tell them, look, it's not about the guy that you're going to marry. It's nice to be able to do it. However, if you need to, it's nice that you know how to.
Yes.
And that's the difference. And I think that we're not bringing the newer generations up this way.
Yes.
And that's the thing, that if you go back, even for me, okay, like if you take someone like your mother-in-law and you place her with me, I'm still a little bit more new school. Obviously, I was born and raised here in Southern California. I wasn't born in the ranch. So it's a different world, though I do love to cook and clean and bake and do all that stuff. But sometimes you don't do it all the time. Like sometimes I'll just do takeout. And see, for them, that's not an option.
That's like, what?
Yeah, that's not an option. So, it's a lot of just kind of understanding that as we evolve, things evolve.
Yes.
The kids will evolve. The generations are going to evolve. But can you keep your children with those morals and values?
It's so hard. So in teaching the boys, this is what to look for. And by the way, you don't even have to tell them what to look for, because they're obviously looking at their mom, like myself.
Right.
And they're looking at the fact that I can keep myself together.
Right.
I can build a career.
Right.
I can spend quality time with my sons, with them as a family. And I still cook, and I still put things together. And so they see, in their eyes, I'm like Superwoman, and they have to understand not everyone's going to be able to do that. So you're going to have to decide what is important to you, is what I tell them.
Deal breaker.
And then figure out what the deal breakers are. So both of them had said they want to make sure that she knows how to cook. And I had to explain. I didn't know how to cook when I got married. I knew a little bit and helping my grandma, but my grandmother really had to help me throughout the first few years of my marriage with the recipes and stuff. But what I'm getting at is this. If you're, and I've explained this to them as well, if you're marrying someone, and let's just say, especially Latino or whatever, like it's tough, right? But I think a guy sees his wife and goes, okay, I want someone that's going to make my house a home.
Right.
What does that look like? What does it smell like? Does that smell like freshly baked cookies every morning? Like, so at the end of the day, when a mom raised her son with morals and doing all these kind of, yard work and being, very like helpful and taking out all the things, and then he ends up with a girl that's like, I'm not doing that. I don't cook. Like, I don't, like, no, like I do hair. And when I get home, I don't want to be standing in front of the stove. Like, that's like not contributing. And so to me, if I, let me tell you,
no, you're one of
see,
those, Rachel.
yes, if I see like my son having to like cook for his
Yeah.
wife and everything, I think it's gonna freaking drive me nuts because to me it's like no. I don't think my youngest son will my older son will pass away, but my younger son, I don't think he'll do it because he's so old fashioned. But
Yeah.
that's what I'm talking about. Like, you need to not just go, oh my God, he's his mom. You have to understand, we see our sons like these golden, like, and guess what? They're not. They're going to be jerks in their marriage. They have all these flaws, but it's really difficult for us to see that.
I think, in my opinion, I think there's this balance. I always say this, right? It seems like this is my like word. There's this balancing act that happens, and I think that if both parties are okay with the circumstances, meaning if they both work and she can't cook, but she'll help with dishes or he'll take the trash out. It's literally a communion. It's not like back in the day where the woman stayed home and just raised the children. And even if you just do that, that's still a job in itself, by the way. Like, I'm not minimizing housewives because it is so much work that takes place, whether you believe it or not.
Oh, it's a lot.
It's a lot. And if you have children, forget it. And so for me, I just feel like if the significant other, the husband, understands that sometimes he's gonna cook and she's okay with doing dishes and they put them away together, you know what, it's just like we are both coming as a team. And so whether you agree with it or not, I just feel like that's the way it should be, because I think teamwork makes the dream work. I think it shouldn't be all the pressure has to be on a woman. I understand that back in the day that's the way it used to be. But women now have careers, they have jobs, they have things that they have to do. For me, raising 2 daughters, I always tell them, this is like my perfect analogy. I said, when you cut an onion, you have to know what you're going to cut the onion for. It could be for burgers, it could be for tacos, it could be for fajitas. You have to know how to cut an onion. And I say, it's not for you to take care of a man. No. It's for you to know, should you then get married and have children, it's nice that you can do these things because I taught you. And so, in my opinion, I feel like these are the things that we will, kind of give to our children to be like, okay, this is what I'm kind of giving you, I'm
the
giving you the
to
world.
Prepare them.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have the means to have a chef to cook for you all day long, twice on Sundays, by all means, and you don't need to really know that. However, you still have to give direction to your chef. I don't want that.
You still got to run the household. You still got to manage it.
Exactly.
I know that with like my boys, I would explain to them even from a young age that that the woman is in charge of the inside of the home. The man is in charge of the outside of the home.
Of course.
And I would give them that clear distinction because I wanted them to go out, take out the trash, do, you know what I mean? Like, okay, that needs to be mowed or whatever it is. And so that they understood those types of things. Hey, the car needs to be washed. There, the tank is on E. There's like all these things, right? So if it's outside the home, the guy has to manage it. So in my marriage, it was an interesting thing because when we first got married, we were in an apartment, and even for a long time we were in an apartment, and then what would happen is, and then we were in the townhome.
Yeah.
And so that dynamic was a real challenge because I used to go to work and then I'd come home, but I still had to cook, I still had to clean the house, I still had to do all the things as if I didn't have a job. To the point where if I had to work till 9 p.m. in LA, my boys were calling me saying, Mom, I'm hungry, even though he's sitting right there. Yeah, it was like on that level of stubborn.
Oh, shoot.
So let me tell you, I started to teach the boys because I realized we're the example,
Yeah.
But what I ended up telling my husband in front of the boys is like, look, if I'm to take care of the inside, that's because you're to take care of the outside. But you have us in this place where we don't have to take care of the outside. It's part of the community, maintenance program or whatever, which means now we need to figure out the responsibility because... So the boys started to learn that. So here's where I'm trying to get to the point is like, now till this day, I have a gardener. Even though my youngest son lives with me, I don't expect him to go up the lawn more outside. So we were talking about when he gets married, he's like, my wife needs to be the one that cleans and she needs to be the one that cooks and takes care of the kids. I don't want to have a housekeeper. I don't want to have all this stuff. And I said, are you going to have a gardener?
Yeah.
And he was like, well, yeah, I'm probably going to have a gardener. And I said, then why wouldn't you have a housekeeper?
Right.
So I'm saying to you ladies, like some of these arguments can be eliminated if you're struggling with your mother-in-law, because she's judging you because you're not cleaning the house.
So my ex-mother-in-law was very judgy because I did have a housekeeper, but I did work. And so I did have to go into the office and I did have to do all of those things. And so someone had to take care of my daughter. And I get it. Like, there was a part of me that, yeah, I could have stayed home and just been a housewife. That was just not what I wanted to do. So for me, I was always judged because I had a housekeeper. And I think it's a lot easier to be a better wife, in my opinion, if you have the means to do it. Yeah. Because you know what, there's things that you need to do to upkeep yourself. And I know this is gonna sound just a little bit too much, but like, you need to get your nails done, you need to get your hair done, you need to do things. And so if you have someone that you trust that is like an extension to your family, because that's what they become, then makes it easier for you to just say, hey, you know what, I gotta go to the office, I gotta take care of this, I gotta meet with this client, whatever it is that you're doing. And then if you have the ability to go get your nails done or what have you, then you just do that. And not to mention the kids go to school anyway.
Yeah.
So, but if you have someone that can do those things for you, I mean, it's no different than having a personal assistant, to be very forward with you.
Yeah.
No different. If you have the means to do it. Now, if you don't, that's okay. Like, you still need to find that time for yourself. And it's really hard. I mean, it's
a tough thing, but as a mom, having your son go and, let's just say, build a career and do all these kinds of things, and depending on who he marries, if she just doesn't want to participate on that level, then as a mom you go, well, what is she bringing to the table? She could say, well, I am the table, blah blah blah, right? But like, what is she bringing to the table? And that's where the evil mother-in-law starts to come out, because she sees her son as like this prize. And especially if he makes money, especially if he becomes successful, that is her son's house. That is her son's car. Like, that girl is just participating in his life. Like, it becomes this very, like, weird dynamic. Yeah. And I've seen it across, like, even all my family and stuff like that, with different people that have become successful and they get married and everyone's like, oh no, that's his house. She's acting like it's her house. And it's just the way it is. It could just be a cultural thing, by the way. So
I think it might be a cultural thing for sure. I mean, I had a little bit of that experience myself personally, and it's kind of funny because you really think about, you do the breakdown in life, and it's different when you walk in to a home that you're like, this was his home from the beginning, and I just moved my stuff in, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, in that case, then you're just kind of adding yourself to it. But when you know that, like, you know, they went through hard times and you were there through the hard times, and then all of a sudden things do just kind of evolve. Yeah. Then you're just like, no, I didn't just walk into this. Like, this is something.
You were his counselor. You were his sounding board. You were his emotional punching bag. You know, there's all these things, right? His outlet, his, you know, whatever, lover.
But I understand it. I understand it. And I want to, you know, we always want to just kind of play the victim role. But if you really put yourself in their perspective, in their shoes, you're like, okay, I can see why she feels that way, though.
Yeah, you just have to, like, take the time to be willing to just hear her out, I think. And, again, I haven't dealt with an evil mother-in-law, so I think it's very easy for me to say, like, hey, just break down that, there's a communication barrier. Some mother-in-laws are just bitchs. Like, let's face it, you're never going to be good enough. And that's okay. You know what? Kill her with kindness. Because one thing that a husband never wants is to have to feel like he's choosing between his mom and his wife.
Right.
And that relationship with his mother, you don't want to fracture that. Because if he's willing to ice her out because of you, he's going to ice you out. Eventually, he's going to resent you and secretly going, I don't even get to see my family or be at the barbecues with my brothers because my wife freaking has this beef with my mom. I
always trip out on the mother-in-laws, on the daughter-in-laws that just let the mother-in-law have it. I'm just like, because see, there is a moment there for me that I was like, you have to have respect, and just, if you don't agree with it, don't say anything. Just take a deep breath, walk away, and if you have to say whatever you have to say in your brain, you know, I mean, for me, it's like, she's having a bad day, she just, whatever, and I would walk away and just say, okay, you know what, she's having a bad day. But a lot of the time, I've seen women that just, like, go at it, and they just start fighting, and I'm like, but at the end of the day, that's like his mom, and there's just, like, respect. Like, your parents should have taught you.
Yes, basic respect your elders.
Your elders.
And I'm gonna kind of give you guys something here. If you're dealing with a mother-in-law and you're like, I don't want her near my kids, and I don't want her blah blah blah. There's a million stories on the respect thing. Remember this: your mother-in-law, she's the queen in his life. You're not the queen. She's the queen, and he's her prince. And let me tell you something, you're a princess. You're not the queen yet. When that woman passes away, you
Right.
become the queen. It's in every hierarchy that exists in the history of mankind.
So true.
But you're wanting to be the queen and dominate like
Right.
the queen and,
Right.
and have her take a back seat when that is the queen. And you have to essentially honor the queen. You think Caitlyn or Meghan Merkel, they're just like, oh my God, this freaking queen. You know what I mean? Like, there's frustrating
Yes,
moments, and
yes.
there's all these like things that feel sort of offensive.
Yep.
But you have to remember, she's not here forever.
Right.
And that is the queen, and she might
Absolutely.
actually be all in that role and take advantage of that role.
So
It doesn't
true.
mean she should disrespect you, but I can tell you that my mother and my grandmother gave me great advice with regards to what to do if you're having problems with his family. And it never ever, and this is the best advice, never ever tell him to fight the battle for you. Never go to him and say, talk to your mom, you need to get her, blah, 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 because she's
Yeah.
upsetting me.
Yeah.
Never ever put him in that situation with his sisters, with his brothers, his cousins, his neighbor.
Yep.
Never, ever, ever. Not with his family. Do not
Yeah.
be that person. If you have a problem
But
in that...
I wonder, okay.
Well, here, hold on.
Okay.
So in that moment, this is the advice. In that moment, if you're right there stirring the beans and she
Yeah.
hits you with the freaking little sarcastic thing that pisses you off,
Special,
in that moment, clap back. Just in the same tone. Just say, well, at least I'm not blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? Like just get good.
But do you think
at
it's
the
a
comebacks.
Latina thing though?
I've heard it with all different people.
Okay, so because I don't know, like I feel like there's a part of me that thinks, okay, is it a Latina thing? Like, okay, because the women are a little bit feistier, the moms are feistier, the moms are like, that's my,
I've heard
that's
a
my
lot-
prince, it's my, you know what I mean?
A lot of across all cultures, I've heard situations where the wife is turning the husband against his family because
Okay.
she feels slighted or judged by the family. And so in that case, you have to remember he is not your go-to for that.
Right, of course.
That's not his job. His only job is if he's hearing it firsthand, his mom like going off on his, he needs to say, Mom, that is my wife, please
Respect
I
her.
need you to just respect her and my house.
That's
That's it. That's all he has to do. But he doesn't have to go and like solve your problems. You need to go sit with her
I agree.
and solve the
The
problem.
problems that you may have.
Yes, and you will become very attractive to your husband.
Right.
Because when he's thinking about, I don't want to be in this marriage no more, he's going to see that you get along with his mom, you guys get along
Right.
with each other. It's so harmonious, and that's one more thing he has to risk from even going out into the world and doing some BS. And I've heard that like from a few guys. It doesn't stop them from cheating. I'm not saying that.
No.
Yeah.
I think at the they're gonna like shoot their shot and they're gonna like risk it all and then hope that you're gonna be a good woman and say, okay, well, it was just a bad decision, and then or not, or just say, screw you, I'm out. But I guess the take back from this is that if you can have peace in your world, in your life, try to do that. I mean,
yes.
and you know what? Sometimes people aren't aligned with you, and you know what? At the end of the day, if you take a deep breath and you're like, she's having a bad day, I'm just not gonna deal with her. She doesn't live with me, and if she does live with you, oh my gosh, I don't know what that.
We'll pray for you. We'll pray for you. If she lives with you,
I don't really know.
we
Like, I
will
don't know how that
pray
would work.
for you. That is a tough one.
Yeah.
I just will add one little thing. I have recently heard stories, a story from someone that was saying that the mother-in-law, was really complaining about the fact that the money, it wasn't even like the mother-in-law as much as the husband complaining that the wife doesn't make enough money, and the mother-in-law was stepping in and saying, he's doing all this, my poor son's working 12 hours a day, and you're just at home, or you're just doing this part-time thing, like you need to step it up.
Oh.
And so in that regard as well, you have to just figure out for you and your husband what the dynamic is, and if he starts saying, you know what, I'm stressed out because I can't afford, you should probably look to do some kind of side gig or something that's not interfering too much. But the wife meddling in the finances, that's a little bit of a tough thing. But
Yeah.
you have to then talk to your husband and say, wait, are you going to your mom complaining about me? Because if he's
Right.
going to his mom and bashing you, and then that's why she's treating you weird when she sees you,
Yeah.
that's between you and your husband.
Yeah.
That
No, that
you
is so
need-
true, because at the end of the day, the son might want to just have someone to confide in, and it's a mom, and the mom obviously is going to take his side, because as she should. I mean,
She should give a woman's perspective to her sons. It doesn't happen.
But most of the time, women in general, and especially mothers that are very protective, they're very biased.
Yes.
So she's going to have a bias towards her son.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the day, if he's bashing you, the likelihood of her liking you is going to be very unlikely.
Slim to none.
And so, but if you know that your husband's going through a hard time and you're ordering stuff on Amazon that you do not
hiding the shoes in the attic or whatever
that you can't afford, maybe you shouldn't do that. You should really think about what you're doing to like not max out credit cards, or how you can actually help out the situation to get to a better place. And so that might be something that you may consider and say, okay, maybe I need to scale it back a little bit. What can I do in addition to what I'm doing to kind of assist and help? Because at the end of the day, like, marriage is a constant team battle of like, I'm doing this, you're doing that. How can we have a meeting of the minds and come together? And
it's hard when you're trying to do this and then you have a third person on the outside being real noisy
and being super biased.
Yes, and just adding to the dynamic. So again, take inventory.
Yep.
Look at the dynamic. Ask yourself, is this her behavior coming from him telling her stuff? Is this behavior just her being protective of her son just because? Guess what? Then if that's the case, you can go directly to her. If it's him going and complaining to his sisters and his mom about you, you need to deal with him.
Of course.
You know what I mean? If everybody in his family just has all these opinions about the money you guys spend on the boat and the this and the that, then together you two can say, hey guys, like we love you guys, but we really appreciate if you just let us freaking live our life. Like, and you got to just come to that happy place that brings you guys peace. But every decision should create a bond between you and your husband, and you don't need to eliminate his family in order to have that bond. If you feel like you have to do that, you got to look at yourself.
I don't want to call you toxic, but it could be
toxicity.
If you want to eliminate the family, you're a little bit more on the toxicity side. But anyway, that's all we have for today. If you're going through a rough time, we're going to pray for you.
Yep,
and at the end of the day, even if you're not, we have a mantra at the end of this. And so say it loud, say it proud.
Say it proud. And remember, you deserve fresh lettuce. Cheers.
Cheers.